You remember when you fought me in my other ship? You remember me? Oh, you're gonna remember me. Don't you worry about that. You're definitely gonna remember me this time. Have a little bit of this and a little bit of that. Yeah, old cars. You think I give a damn? Yeah, you're wrong. Where you going? Where you going, son? You think you're leaving? No, wait. Have a little bit of this flak cannon, baby. A little bit of the flak cannon. Shields up, Iron Breakers. Rurikhan here, coming at you with another video, and today we're going to be talking about Everspace for the Nintendo Switch. This title was sent to me by Rockfish Games so that I could give it a look and tell you guys my opinions on it. Now, ever so often I tend to get this urge to just jump onto a spaceship and engage in some space warfare. And I guess the reasoning behind that, it's probably because of my upbringing with Star Wars and the fact that I greatly enjoyed the space battles much more than necessarily the lightsaber battles, which I guess I'm a little bit in the minority there, but nonetheless, that's my relationship with Star Wars. So I guess that's one of the reasons why every now and then I'm just like, oh man, I just feel like jumping on a spaceship, doing a little bit of space combat. And up until this point, we haven't really had what I would consider to be a viable option to engage in such a thing on the Nintendo Switch. And I know that some people are going to bring up, oh, but Rurikhan, you got Starlink. And it's like, well, I mean, the business model of Starlink isn't really something that I can get behind. There's a reason why that game is on my top 6 most disappointing games of 2018, because it's just that business model, the thing of, oh, you got to buy the weapon and buy the thing. Like, why couldn't you just unlock the weapons in game? Like you can do in Everspace, for instance. So anyways, I requested for a code, they sent me a code, and I started playing it because I was curious. This is not the first time that I'm playing Everspace, by the way. I played Everspace back when it first came out of early access on the PC. I was curious about it, and so I played a little bit of it, and it's like, okay, I get it, I see what they're going for here, but at the same time, I felt like, you know, this is still in early access, let's just let it sit in the oven and let it cook for a little bit longer until the game is more fleshed out, right? And lo and behold, they came out with a Switch version, and I wanted to, you know, see if this would be a viable game to have on the Switch that would actually allow me to scratch my space sim itch, so to speak. And it does in certain ways, and it doesn't in others. But anyways, let's get started. So the very first thing that a lot of people are going to be curious about, particularly people that have played Everspace before, you guys are going to be curious about the visuals. Now, you guys can see what the game looks like in the gameplay in the background, and something that you will notice is that it is probably a little bit lower fidelity than a lot of you guys were expecting, because this game actually looks really, really good on PC. I remember back when I played it, it had really good visuals. And on the Switch, naturally, they had to make some concessions because the Switch is much more limited in terms of hardware. And this is, I wouldn't say this is like the most ambitious game, but at the same time, it does have some pretty neat visuals. So the visuals are not fantastic. Some of the stuff, particularly a lot of times you'll be looking at your ship and you almost get that feeling like, you know, in certain games, they're still loading in the textures. And you look at your ship and you're like, why haven't the textures loaded? And it's like, no, this is just the way that your ship looks. But at the same time, it's like when you are in the middle of a combat and you're just like strafing left and right and trying to dodge shots and firing at your enemies, is that really going to impact your experience all that much? Not really. Does it really break your immersion? Well, I mean, if you're someone that is like super addicted to visuals, you're probably not someone that cares that much about the Nintendo Switch to begin with, so I just don't think that game might, that the console itself might be for you. But for anyone that is used to some of the concessions that have to be made, like say maybe you've seen something like a Doom or a Wolfenstein running on a Nintendo Switch, I don't think that this is particularly bad looking. This is a personal opinion. I think the game looks okay. It doesn't look fantastic. Do I wish it looked a little bit better? I do, but at the same time, it doesn't look atrocious. And then we come on to the performance. How does the game actually perform on a Nintendo Switch? Well, for the most part, when you're having your base encounters, well, maybe you have like a dogfight against 4 to 5 other spaceships, it'll be fine. Like, the game runs at about a steady 30 FPS throughout most of the runs that I've done so far, and I've never really felt like I've been super hindered by the performance of the game in any scenario, really. However, every now and then you will get the occasional slow up, particularly when it seems to be like whenever the number of ships on screen goes beyond like 6 or 7, which is, at least for the runs that I've done so far, because I haven't finished the game yet, so I don't know how hectic stuff gets later down the line. But for the runs that I've done so far, it doesn't happen that often that you're engaged in a dogfight that involves like 6, 7, 8 spaceships. Doesn't happen very often. And when that does happen, you will see the occasional slow up. But at the same time, like I said, it's not terrible to the point where it's unplayable. It is, however, very much noticeable. So if you're someone that is incredibly bothered by the occasional slow up when things get too hectic, this might be a bit of a down point for you. But like I said, throughout most of the experience, it should be fine. Another situation that I've noticed, I've had some slow ups where was there's sometimes these structures out in space and they're just like chuck full of fuel deposits. And you can blow those up if you want to. As a matter of fact, I believe that there's like a bonus for doing a run and blowing up like 50 fuel deposits. So I once tried doing this and I noticed some serious slow ups as I start blowing them all up and the screen starts filling up with items, because basically whenever you blow up fuel deposits, fuel comes out of them that you can scoop up with your ship. And there was at one point, I think there was like, I don't know, 40, 50 fuel things just like spread throughout the screen. I definitely noticed some slow up, but again, I do not think that it was unplayable. So again, when it comes to visuals and performance, it is not the best thing that you can get, but like I said, some concessions have to be made to bring a game like this onto the Nintendo Switch. It is something that I think Nintendo Switch owners need to expect, because again, console is somewhat limited in power. And it might even pose the question, well, why should I play Everspace on a Nintendo Switch instead of playing it someplace else? Because the game is available in other platforms like the PC and PlayStation 4, and I believe even Xbox One. And the only reason to really do it is for the convenience and portability of the Nintendo Switch. If that is an important thing for you, I still think it's worth it. Whether or not, whether or not you think it's worth it is going to be completely up to you. You need to take a good, long, hard look at the visuals and at the performance. You should have like a full spectrum in the gameplay that you see throughout this video. So just pay attention to that, and you need to make your own decision on that end. Now, one of the things that a lot of people might be wondering, that particularly those that don't know about Everspace, because maybe you only played Nintendo consoles and maybe you aren't really familiar with this title, is like, so what is the title like? Like, what's the gameplay like? What's the gameplay loop? And essentially, this is a roguelike single-player game. What does that mean? Well, essentially, you start the game, they give you a ship, and they just, like, send you out into space. And you go into space, and you enter, like, say, the first zone. And in the first zone, you're going to be looking around, you're going to be a little bit confused, like, what's going on? Well, there'll be a couple of contacts that start showing up on your HUD. Some of those might be containers that may contain credits or materials or whatever. And some of those might be hostile crafts that will come at you and try to kill you. So naturally, you'll have to engage in combat fairly early on. You will have to, learn how to defend yourself and fight. As a matter of fact, sometimes you'll start a run and you might just get instantly overrun. It's happened to me more than once because the game is procedurally generated. That's, roguelike. That's the way it goes. So you start a run with a spaceship and you start, trying to collect resources, trying to collect fuel. And whenever you are ready to leave a specific zone, there will be like a green swirly thing on screen. You just aim your ship in that direction and boom, you go on to the next zone. Now, beyond zones, you also have sectors, and your objective is to continue through the game until you reach the eventual end, I would assume. So you go through zones and sectors, and as you go and you collect resources and weapon upgrades and stuff like that, you'll start upgrading your ship, and you will start, picking up materials that you can also use for crafting. There's also a very detailed crafting system in the game that allows you to craft sometimes consumable items, sometimes more permanent items, and even upgrade your shield, your ship hull, and a bunch of other stuff. But the thing is, whenever you die, you essentially lose everything that you've done in that run, because again, it is a roguelike. So what then becomes of like all of the progress that you've done? Well, as you are going through each run, you're also collecting credits. And at the end of each run, you get to basically spend those credits in upgrading your pilot skills, upgrading your ship skills. So there is a consistent progression to your character, as well as a consistent progression to your ship. You can upgrade the ship, you can upgrade the character, but like weapons and stuff like that that you've picked up along a certain run, you lose those, and you have to try either to collect them again, or you have to try to craft them, because you can also find weapon blueprints, and then you can collect materials to craft those weapons in future runs. But that's kind of how the basic gameplay loop goes. Like I said, there's the persistent upgrades, there's the crafting system, but another cool thing that they've added since I last checked Everspace was a bit of an expansion that they called the encounters. And this means that as you go throughout these missions and you do these runs, you'll encounter different aliens that will give you quests. And this was actually fully voice acted, which I thought was pretty cool. And these aliens, like, they'll give you quests, and it doesn't matter if you die, because basically those quests progress throughout the whole game. So say for instance you encounter an alien and he gives you a quest, oh, we gotta go to this base and take out the defenses of this space base over here, and maybe we'll get some good rewards, right? But then you died. You don't necessarily lose that quest. You can take that quest on the next run. The base will still be there in a future like zone or sector or whatever, and you will still have the option to take that quest and get reward for it. As a matter of fact, one of the things that I did was I completed a quest in one run, then I died, then I met up the alien NPC on a separate run, and the alien NPC rewarded me for the quest that I had done on a previous run. So there is a consistent progression, despite the fact that you always lose your spaceship, and, well, not your spaceship, you always have a spaceship, but you always lose your weapons and, you know, certain upgrades that you might have picked up along the way. So in a way, this also leads to a lot of experimentation with you fooling around and changing the different weapons on your spaceship, which does feel cool. You know, every now and then I kind of long for a more persistent upgrade system. I do sometimes feel like I wish that was a thing. But at the same time, it hasn't stopped me from coming back and just being in that state of like you're playing and you die like, okay. And you look at your watch and like, okay, it's 1 in the morning. Just one more run. Just one more run. You know, you do get that, which is a good thing. Whenever you get a game that is run-based, like a roguelike, and you're looking at your watch, you're looking at time, you're like, just one more run. That's usually, in my opinion, a very good thing. Now, a couple more criticisms that I have about the game is particular to the controls. So they only have a couple of default layouts that they allow you to pick from. And one of the things that really bothered me is, this might be something very, very nitpicky and very specific to me personally, is that the game maps your controls a certain way. And, you know, whenever you have a space sim, you can do several things with your ship. Like you can strafe sideways, you can move it up and down, you can roll your ship, and you can speed it up, slow it down, do whatever you want, right? One of the problems that I have has to do with the mapping of the roll button. As a matter of fact, by default, the game comes with auto roll. And I would actually advise you to leave that on, because it's just much more intuitive with the current control setup that they have for the game if you just leave auto roll on, because it will automatically roll your ship to, you know, the most correct. It's almost like it aligns you so that you know which way is up and which way is down, which in space shouldn't really matter, but in this game, just trust me, if you do end up getting it, at least for the first couple of runs, leave auto leveling on. But anyways, the problem that I actually have is that the binding for rolling the ship, you actually have to press down on the right stick. You have to press down on the stick and then move the stick in order to rotate. And I was just like, that's crazy, dude. That's so unintuitive, and it doesn't feel good at all. And then they give you the option to swap the controls for that with the yaw control. Now, yaw control is making your ship turn left or right. Now, that to me was like, no, I can't swap that, because then I won't be able to aim properly when I'm in combat. What I wanted to do is I actually wanted to swap it with strafing the ship left and right. Because when you're in combat, despite in this game I use strafing a whole lot because I don't have any other option, I would actually prefer to use roll and then boosting away, and, you know, I would rather maneuver that way, but they don't give you a really good customization option that allows me to put the roll in a way that works for me. Like, I wish that, look, just let me customize all of the controls. which I think is something that you can do on the PC. At least I would assume so. I don't remember because I haven't, last time I booted Everspace might have been some point last year or maybe even the year before that. So I honestly don't remember, but I would assume that on the PC you can bind every control. So that's something that I would like to see on the Nintendo Switch version. I would really like them to just allow me to rebind everything. Like, it doesn't matter if I end up making a control scheme that is completely bonkers and doesn't work at all. That's on me. But at least at that point, it'll be on me, and it won't be because I feel that I am limited by the control schemes that they put into the game. I don't actually know if me flying the ship the way that I wanted to fly it would have made for a better experience, but I just wish the option was there. Ultimately, did that really stop me from enjoying the game? No, not that much. I'm still going in every now and then whenever I get that space combat itch and just like enjoy a couple of runs, upgrade a ship a little bit, and just fool around in that universe. And it is pretty satisfying, like I said, particularly now that they have the encounters thing that allows you to interact with aliens and get quests from them, and it gives you a bit more persistent throughout each of the runs. And the other thing that I haven't even talked about is story. This game does have an actual story to it. Your character is a named character. He is voice acted. And they give you these cutscenes that are very simplistic, almost like a comic book style cutscenes, but they do have a little bit of animation that tell you the background story of your character. And I have to say, I'm very curious to see where it goes, because it is kind of weird, but basically there's a justification as to why whenever you die, you just kind of like come back in and you're going on another run. There's a justification as to why things are happening that way. And interestingly enough, I can't give you too many more details, but yeah, let's just say that there is a justification for that, and I'm very curious for learning more, because I also don't want to spoil it for you guys, but I'm very curious for learning more about it. Either way, that's Everspace for the Nintendo Switch. Personally, I'm enjoying it quite a bit. It is one of those games that I like just every now and then, just booting it up, do a couple of runs, and then just like move on. It's not something that I would play for, say, I don't know, 6 hours straight or something like that. But it is something that I do enjoy. Going in there, running it a little bit, scratching that space itch, and then moving on. That's kind of how I feel about Everspace. And I do feel that it is a worthy addition to the Switch, because it does fill in a void that, at least to my experience, we just don't have any other alternatives to, other than Starlink or whatever. Either way, thank you guys very much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, make sure to hit the like button, make sure to subscribe if you are new here, and hit the bell notifications icon. I'll see you guys in the next one.